Hello and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the World Report, viewers. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. In a big revelation in the Delhi blast case, key suspect Muzambil has told investigators, in fact, that he and Umar had recceed the Red Fort before the explosion in the area left 9 people dead day before yesterday. Now, according to sources that NDTV is learning from, Muzambil has been questioned and also confronted with information recovered from his phone's data dump. Now, during questioning, Muzambil has also said there was an attack planned for the 26th of January next year. That's 2026, viewers. Not only this, he's also said that the area around Red Fort was recceed also as part of this plot. Meanwhile, Muzambil, the source, has also said that he's also told the cops that they had a plan, Muzambil and his associates, a plan to attack a crowded place this Diwali, but it could not be carried out. Meanwhile, investigators into the Jaish module linked to the Delhi blast have revealed that suspects Umar and Amir had procured 2 more cars from national capital Delhi. This NDTV has exclusively learnt. These cars could have been used for terror conspiracy as well. Leaders and diplomats from around the world are expressing solidarity with India after the deadly blast in national capital New Delhi. Condolences, viewers, have poured in, as you see on your screens right there, from across continents, reflecting global concern and sympathy for the lives lost. The ambassadors of Japan, the US, the United Kingdom, Israel, Bangladesh, Iran, Argentina, Australia, Morocco, and Sri Lanka, among others, of course, have all sent messages of grief and support. The US Embassy, meanwhile, has issued a security alert urging its citizens to stay away from crowded areas near the Red Fort and Chandni Chowk. Japan's ambassador, meanwhile, Uno Kaichi, and British High Commissioner Lindy Cameron have also conveyed sorrow and wished speedy recovery to all those who've been injured. Israel's ambassador Reuven Azar, meanwhile, has termed the incident heartbreaking. Meanwhile, Bangladesh's envoy has said that his country stands firmly with India in this hour of tragedy. Now, similar messages of condolences are also coming in from other countries like Iran, Australia, and Sri Lanka. All of them praying for strength for the victims' families and healing for the injured. The international community, meanwhile, stands united with India, mourning the victims and hoping for a swift recovery and a swift return back to normalcy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met Jigme Singye Wanchuk, the 4th king of Bhutan, and later also jointly inaugurated the Kal Chakra empowerment ceremony in capital Thimphu. Now, this marks a significant moment in the deep spiritual and cultural ties between the two countries. Now, the Kal Chakra, viewers, one of the Tibetan Buddhism's most sacred and elaborate rituals, I must mention here, is being observed as a 3-day empowerment ceremony conferring blessings and authorizations for advanced meditative practices aimed at achieving enlightenment, or moksha in this case. The empowerment ceremony is part of the Global Peace Prayer Festival 2025, which is being organized, in fact, by the Royal Government of Bhutan between the 4th and the 17th of November. My colleague Deepak Bopanna, meanwhile, is in Thimphu, gets us this report.
It's a historic day for the bilateral ties between India and Bhutan, as Prime Minister Modi, who you can see, who's right behind me, of course, pays a visit to Bhutan. And he's been here for the last couple of days. It's been a grand, global peace prayer festival over the last 15 days. Monks, spiritual leaders from different parts of the world descending to Bhutan to send a message of peace and harmony. The Prime Minister, of course, during the last couple of days has taken part in multiple meetings, signed MOUs with the government of Bhutan, also inaugurated the hydropower project, and more importantly, while speaking in Bhutan, did speak about the strong ties that the two nations have, and even sent out a strong message to the perpetrators of terror that justice will be done and they will be brought to book. But overall, from Bhutan, from the Global Peace Prayer Festival, it's the message of peace and harmony that's being sent out to the entire world. In Thimphu, Deepak Bopanna for NDTV.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met with his Canadian counterpart Anita Anand on the sidelines of the ongoing G7 foreign ministers meeting in Niagara, and said he looked forward to further rebuilding our bilateral partnership. He also congratulated Anand on hosting the G7 foreign ministers meeting and appreciated the progress in the implementation of the new roadmap 2025. Meanwhile, over in the UK, viewers, allies of Prime Minister Keir Starmer insist he will firmly resist any attempt by Labour MPs to in fact challenge his leadership. Supporters of Keir Starmer, however, fear his position could very well also come under immediate threat, possibly as soon as after this current budget, which is, of course, due in the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, critics in the UK are arguing that the response shows Downing Street is now in, quote, full bunker mode, warning that such defensiveness will not help the government climb out of the hole it is in. Stay with the UK, where the Starmer government has rallied to the defense of state broadcaster BBC. That's correct. Now, this comes after a $1 billion lawsuit from US President Donald Trump over the state broadcaster's editing a speech he made after losing the 2020 presidential election. Now, not only this, BBC also faces allegations of institutional bias. Here's more.
At a time when the lines are being dangerously blurred between fact and opinion, news and polemic, the BBC stands apart. It is a light on the hill for people here and across the world. Trusted news and high-quality programming is essential to our democratic and cultural life. All of us in this House should value it, uphold it, and fiercely defend it. The BBC is facing challenges, some of its own making, but it is doing so in the context of a revolution in the media landscape that has challenged all broadcasters and polarised and fragmented our national debate. It is time to grip this with a clarity of vision and purpose that secures the BBC's future.
UK cops have said the sentencing of the Chinese Cryptoqueen has ended one of the longest, the largest and the most complex economic crime investigations that they have ever undertaken. Himim Kian was jailed for 11 long years over a Bitcoin stash worth 6.6 billion American dollars after defrauding more than 128,000 people in China in a Ponzi scheme. That's correct. Now, the head of London's Economic and Cybercrime Metropolitan Police Service has said that he believed that the conviction has, quote, sent a clear message, unquote, that London was no safe harbour for ill-gotten gains and for money launderers. Listen in.
Hopefully this brings some closure for victims in terms of the end of the criminal investigation and the principal architect behind the original Ponzi scheme obviously being sentenced. But I think it also sends a really clear message that London and the UK is no safe harbour for ill-gotten gains and for money launderers, and that we will relentlessly pursue with our national and international partners to identify, seize those assets and bring offenders and perpetrators to justice.
The UK has suspended some intelligence sharing with the US over growing concerns about American military strikes on suspected drug boats in the Caribbean. Now, London viewers has reportedly does not want its intelligence used for strikes it believes may very well violate international law. US forces, meanwhile, have carried out at least 19 attacks on vessels in the Caribbean and the Pacific, killing more than 70 people till date. The UK, meanwhile, has long helped identify drug routes in the region, but British officials now fear that those very missions are turning into unlawful military action by the US. Meanwhile, France is also voicing concerns, saying that the US operations breach international law. Not only this, it's also alleging that they risk the safety of French territories in the Caribbean. Meanwhile, Venezuela has begun extensive military exercises with the aim of safeguarding its airspace against possible foreign aggression. Now, these maneuvers come amid growing tensions and friction with Washington following the Trump administration's order to send warships to the Caribbean waters near Venezuela. We get you more.
Insisto, no ha habido pausa ni habrá pausa. Nosotros seguiremos en nuestra determinación de prepararnos para defender nuestra patria en todos los ámbitos, cualquiera sea la amenaza, su intensidad, su proporción, etcétera. Cualquiera sea, y para eso, bueno, nos planteamos diversos escenarios.
We shift our focus to West Asia, where lifting sanctions is a prerequisite for any negotiations between Iran and the United States and other Western countries. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai has just said at a press briefing in Tehran. Now, regarding US-Iran relations, Baghai said that while the US repeatedly claims to seek negotiations with Tehran, it has repeatedly failed to take any concrete actions, now obviously lacking genuine intent to engage. He also pointed out that years of brutal sanctions imposed by the US and its Western allies also have inflicted harm on Iran, reflecting their hostility towards the West Asian country. We stay with the region where Iraq held the sixth parliamentary election since the 2003 US-led invasion on Tuesday, with over 20 million eligible voters casting ballots at 8,703 polling centers to choose among 7,744 candidates competing for 329 parliamentary seats. Viewers, the voting process began at 7 a.m. local time and ended at 1800 hours. 11 hours the voting went on for under the supervision of the Iraqi Independent High Electoral Commission. More than 2,200 women were among the candidates contesting in what Iraqi leaders are describing as a pivotal moment for the country's future. We get you more.
جربنا السنوات الباقية والانتخابات البرلمانية يعني ما شفنا هسه إن شاء الله نشوف أمل بهاي الانتخابات الجديدة يعني
رفع تحریم ها یک مطالبه مشروع ملت ایران هست. لطفی نیست که آمریکا و دیگران بخوان در مورد ایران اعمال بکنن. ما همیشه گفتیم که در قبال اعتماد سازی در مورد ماهیت صلح‌آمیز برنامه هسته ایران، تحریم های ظالمانه‌ای که به ناحق علیه ایران اعمال شده باید رفع بشه.
The top leaders of Australia and Indonesia said Wednesday that they are close to signing a new bilateral defense treaty in Sydney. Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto and Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced the pact during the Indonesian leader's first state visit to the land down under. Now, Albanese said that he hoped to sign the complete treaty during a visit to Indonesia in January 2026. Here's what he said.
Today I am standing alongside my friend, Indonesian President Bapak Prabowo Subianto, to make what is a historic announcement. The governments of Australia and Indonesia have just substantively concluded negotiations on a new bilateral treaty on our common security. Australia's relationship with Indonesia is based on friendship, trust, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to peace and stability in our region. This treaty is a recognition from both our nations that the best way to secure that peace and stability is by acting together. It signals a new era in the Australia-Indonesia relationship.
Typhoon Wong has claimed 27 lives and affected more than 3.59 million people, across the Philippines. This is according to the latest report released by the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council on Wednesday morning, just this Wednesday morning. Now, the fierce Category 5 typhoon made landfall over the Aurora province in eastern part of Luzon Islands of the Philippines on Sunday evening, hitting the municipality of Niwalugan around 9:10 local time. Now, according to the State Weather Bureau, search operations continue for 2 missing individuals as the country begins assessing the full extent and the sheer damage, the scope of destruction caused by this typhoon.
Doon po nakatirik ang bahay namin, dumating po ang bagyo at malalakas na alon. Pero nakalikas pa rin naman po kami. Hindi namin alam kung paano po magsisimula ngayon dahil napakahirap po mawalan ng bahay. Lalo't wala po kaming mga hanap buhay.
Rescue teams are still pulling bodies from the mud and debris, viewers, in Uganda's Sabai region following prolonged intense rainfall in the Elgon Highlands, which in fact has triggered massive soil movements across steep slopes between the 30th of October and the 31st of November this year. Meanwhile, the Uganda Red Cross Society, which is also leading research, search and recovery efforts, says hopes of finding more survivors continue fading, even as families in the area continue to report missing relatives with each passing day. Additional teams, meanwhile, from the army and police have already joined operations, but heavy rains are still slowing down rescue efforts. The government has offered about $1,500 to each bereaved family to help with burial arrangements. Hundreds of survivors, meanwhile, who lost their homes are now sheltering in temporary shelters as they wait to be moved to safer ground. We get you some reactions.
As we talk now, they're using rudimentary tools. So you see that there is still some need of more manpower, because if people are saying that about 19 bodies are covered and you have so far only recovered 2, that leaves you with about 17 that have not yet been retrieved from here. But what we can commit, of course, together with our under the coordination of the Office of the Prime Minister, that we shall do whatever it takes to see that we try to recover the bodies of the families that we covered here.
Demonstrators gathered on a roundabout on a Belém street outside the agri-zone, a dedicated zone for agriculture outside the COP30 venue in Brazil's Belém. Viewers, it was a public demonstration after demonstrations in the previous 2 COPs in Dubai and Baku. Azerbaijan's Baku, by the way, were limited to inside the COP venue only because of the host country's restrictions against public protests. Activists, meanwhile, gathered to share stories of how exactly has industrial agriculture affected their indigenous lands and homes.
It's the same people that are sponsoring this zone that are depriving millions of people around the world with the right to good, nutritious, culturally appropriate food. So we don't believe the narratives that they're pushing, and we know for a fact that this is a systemic propaganda machine that I've been putting up for many years.
A rare blackout has hit the entire Dominican Republic on Tuesday, stalling traffic and paralyzing businesses in the country of nearly 11 million people. Now, viewers, officials are blaming a failure in the power grid's transmission system. However, it wasn't immediately clear what was in fact behind this massive blackout. Now, this blackout disrupted mass transit systems, including aerial cable cars and also metros in the capital Santo Domingo, where some people also disembarked from the trains and began walking through tunnels alongside the railway. Hospitals and banks and other large institutions, meanwhile, were relying on generators, but many homes and small businesses were without power. Hours after the blackout was reported, Energy Minister Joel Santos announced late in the evening that 15% of the power had in fact been restored and that the rest was gradually to be recovered.
Pero el calor nos está sofocando ya, y entonces esperando que a ver si era cierto lo que están diciendo, que es general. Yo sí, todo el mundo dice que es general, pero que yo no estaba...
Yo nunca había visto cosa igual.
Apagón así tan.
Animals at Brookfield Zoo in Chicago got a taste of winter as the city saw its first snowfall of the season, viewers. Flurries fell on Sunday across parts of the Chicago area, with large swaths of the U.S. prepared for one of the season's first blasts of wintry weather. This as temperatures dipped and snow fell in the northern plains. And we leave you with the light moment from Virginia, where U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance had President Trump laughing, in fact cracking out loud with a perfectly timed joke during his introduction. And the crowd loved it as well, so did Trump, and they believe so will you. Take a look.
I want to say just a couple of things. I've learned a couple of things from working so closely with the President of the United States. The first thing is that he loves our nation's veterans and has committed our nation's administration to putting our veterans first every single day. And the second thing I've learned about the President of the United States is that he really hates when somebody who's speaking before him goes on for too long. And so with that in mind, I have prepared a very brief and very inspiring 1 hour and 45-minute speech on this beautiful Veterans Day out here in the cold.
Welcome back to the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. On to updates from the world of technology and business, where Asian stocks viewers rose on Tuesday, while gold and the Nasdaq were basking in their sharpest gains. Believe you, for months, thanks to signs, is the end to the US government shutdown was in the offing. Gold jumped by nearly 3% overnight and was comfortably above $4,100 in Asia in morning. The Nasdaq rose 2.3% to recover much of the losses inflicted last week by a bout of nerves around the valuation and profitability of AI firms. Boeing has received approval from the US Aviation Regulatory Agency last week to begin the third of 5 major phases of certification flight tests for its 777-9 wide-body jet, the Air Current reported on Monday, citing sources. The aviation industry publication also added that this would mark the largest single round of evaluations for the long-delayed aircraft program, citing people familiar with its progress. And in Bangladesh, about 100 workers employed by Malaysian companies rallied on Monday to demand for unpaid wages, fair compensation, and, of course, an end to abuse. A Bangladeshi migrant group called the Migrant Welfare Network organized the protest right outside the Ministry of Expatriates Welfare. The protesters, meanwhile, demanded workers' welfare for 431 Bangladeshi workers being exploited by 2 Malaysian companies, Medi Seram and Kawaguchi Manufacturing. Now, the Migrant Welfare Board, or the network, is pushing for authorities to take immediate action and take cognizance of this matter.